we got some new information yesterday that caused the United States to act quickly. And I'm wondering whether you think that new information is different than what we've started to believe, and that is that training is essential, and maybe training in the United States has been more comprehensive or carried out better than maybe around the rest of the world. Is that, given the new data yesterday that caused the actual plane to be grounded, do we have to rethink that there might be an actual, it's not like a pilot not being trained well enough at this point?
Good morning, everyone. And Joe, to answer your question, any accident investigation is going to look at every facet of what's going on. And to specifically address your issue of training, I can speak for the pilots of SWAP, and we've done that in the blast that we've put out. That is why we were so confident in the Southwest pilots' ability to fly the MAX. When they look at everything that happened, because what we've seen at our airline, for the pilots I represent, you've got 90,000 hours of data, over 41,000 hours, 41,000 flights, and we've got to figure out why there is this anomaly between what we're seeing with our data and the 2 accidents that have happened overseas in the last 6 months.
Captain, anecdotally, and I think they were anonymous posts or comments, but there were some incidents, 5 or so, in this country where you just see that some pilots were kind of grousing about the MCAS or that, you know, why did we need that one of them used the term jury rig this system to address what was never a problem before on Boeing jets. Is there anything to that? I mean, all the previous Boeings didn't have the anti-stall system, right?
The MCAS is new to the MAX. What I have asked our safety committee to do, and they've done, and I can report to you, we looked through all of the de-identified data that we have, and we had one write-up on the MAX. It was not MCAS related. And after our safety committee reviewed that data, we're part of ASAP and FDAP, and we can get into that later if you want to. But after they reviewed that data, they were satisfied that it did not merit further investigation. On the ASAP reports that have been making the media and the reports that people have been quoting, all I would do is urge you to please remember that each one of those reports is de-identified, and the complete information is not in each one of those reports. Not that they're not valid, but they're going to require getting into the weeds to look at the report itself, and you can't do that just based on the initial or the public data that everybody can pull up.
All right, let me turn to John. Jonathan versus John. John, you, off camera, when this first happened, we talked about how comfortable any of us would have been going up on one of these jets after those developed. So I figure with you, you represent all these transportation workers. First and foremost, you want to just ensure the safety of anyone in the union.
Right. So I don't think it's a situation of Jonathan versus John.
No, I don't mean versus. I mean just
side.
so when I say John, so you'll know I'm talking to you instead of him.
Gotcha.
I wasn't asking you guys to argue.
We believe it's an absolute common sense move in the aftermath of 2 similar catastrophes with the same plane, with the same MCAS system, to ground the planes until the voice and data recorder came back from the second accident at Ethiopian. And so there's some problems here. And I think it goes beyond what Captain Weeks is speaking about. There's a bit of an incestuous relationship between the FAA, Boeing, and the airline industry that needs to be dealt with. Boeing was allowed by the FAA to put a plane into service without even telling the pilots that there was an MCAS system in place that could override their skill and nosedive a plane and cause a catastrophe.
You mean when the plane was originally put into service?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So how does the FAA allow a company like Boeing to put a plane into service that has a override device that could nosedive a plane and cause mass loss of life, which is exactly what happened?
And you think the FAA is in cahoots with Boeing?
I think that the FAA has a unhealthy, as I said, incestuous relationship with both the manufacturers and the airline industry. And I think there's examples of that go beyond these 2 accidents. I mean, for instance, right now the FAA is allowing U.S. passenger air carriers. When you get on a plane, you probably don't even realize that there's a good chance that plane was overhauled or maintained in South America or perhaps China, rather than on U.S. soil with mechanics making a good wage, a good blue-collar wage. So in the lust for profits, the airline industry is driving all this work overseas. It's very dangerous for us, and it's eventually going to wind up in a catastrophic event.
You believe that the safety work that's supposedly being done on these aircrafts outside of the United States is actually not safe?
I believe it's far less safe than work that's done on U.S. soil. And I give that as just another example of the FAA having this incestuous relationship with the industry and the manufacturers. They're interested in profits. And anytime a situation occurs where the FAA thinks they work for the industry and not for the American people, it's a problem, and it calls for congressional oversight.
Captain Weeks, do you understand where John's coming from?
Yeah, let me start with the last things that he said. We actually advised our membership. I know you all are aware of the mechanics negotiations with Southwest Airlines. One thing that we have pressed for is to publish and keep public the work reliability of union mechanics, in-house mechanics, versus the reliability of outside vendors, be that foreign or domestic. Nobody should hide from the facts and the evidence that brings out. I think it's good for everybody.
What do you think that evidence would show?
I'm sorry, Andrew, could you say it one more time?
What do you think that evidence would show if that was made public?
Sure. I think what it will show is in-house work, union work by the mechanics, by our mechanics, has a better rate of reliability and completion than outside vendors. And it's not necessarily something that's critical one safety related. It could be, but what it just shows is the reliability, and the reliability once that aircraft comes back online, and how the reliability of that aircraft 4 or 5 days after it comes back. Right. I would put our mechanics work up against any vendor any day.
And by the way, the pilots unions have supported us tremendously.
In an America First world, that might be something that's actually really quite worth doing.
Yeah.
What would it do to pricing? Do we know? Ticket pricing.
These companies are making gazillions of dollars a year. So if it costs a little more money to ensure the safety of the American riding public and American aviation workers, so be it.